Hello and welcome to our fourth episode of Priority Parenting. I'm really happy with the kind of responses we are receiving where parents are encouraging us to complete the series. Fathers are complaining we have not enough to be told to, or mothers are suggesting the topics that we can talk about. Today in the episode, we will talk about something even more sensitive than what we spoke about the last time, called the absent father syndrome. So a quick recap of our session 3. We said, especially to the mothers where the spouses are not there or not being significant enough in parenting role, you criticize the behavior, not the man. And of course, we looked at some of the sad statistics where fathers who are not there led to extra crime scenes, gun violence we see in the United States, and these are real happening statistics in our time and age. And finally, a father being there makes such a big difference in the child's life, especially the daughters, where they look upon to that man in their life who they grow up to admire. So what are we going to talk about today? In this episode, we're going to talk about feelings. And feelings as in who expresses their feelings better, boys or girls. Of course, girls are more natural communicators, partly because girls bond very well. Most of the things we see around are girly things. Our textbooks, our stories, our poems are so much about a girl's liking rather than about cars and running around or football. Boys also have the same range and depth of emotion, it is just they don't express them. So, in today's episode, we'll talk about a very important part, talking to boys. You see, one of the research says that girls often have more opportunity to express themselves. It could be the dollhouse they have, it could be the kitty party that they're playing, or just admiring the dress. Boys on the other hand, because mothers are a central part to their bringing up, they cannot talk so much about their sport activity they participated in. And this is a very important difference for mothers to understand. If a mother has a daughter and a son, she'll be surprised by the difference way they react to the same situation. The son may have very few words and his language will develop much later than the daughters. I mean, just look at the men and women. You know, when men sit down to see a game of football, that's what they do. They see a game of football. The only communication you'll have is either pass the popcorn or give the Pepsi. But when mothers sit down to watch their favorite episode, there will be every other communication but the episode being played. So yes, let's have a great session on how do you engage children generally and boys in particular to talk to us. This is a case of a mother who was a terrific listener. So she, let's call her Pain. So our mother, she was a great mother and she had the firstborn, her daughter Savannah. And Savannah and Pain went on very well. Savannah would ask questions. Sometimes Pain would be stunned by the amount of talking this little girl did. In fact, one of the books suggests that actually girls as young as 5-year-old ask around 300 questions a day. Now, you start counting and they will make you mad, you know. So, Pain would find her daughter Savannah ask questions while they're driving, while they're in the grocery store, while she's picking up the phone, while she's returning from school. And Savannah had so many things to ask about. After 2 years, she again got a child, and this time it was her son, Broody. But when Broody was born, things were different. Broody was not so verbally intense, and in fact, Pain started enjoying that silence with Broody because despite similar personalities, the vocabulary were very different. And Broody was a happy boy. He did well in school, at least until grade 6. In grade 6, the problem started happening in. You see, Pain did not know what was happening, but Broody was a great piano player. He loved playing football. He seemed to enjoy going to school and never get into trouble. However, now his behavior changed. He was stubborn, and the teachers started talking about his cheating in the school. After months of talking, there was nothing that Broody was sharing with the mother. Also, the problem was compounded when his father got a new job. So the father would spend 2 months working overseas in the oil rig and then he would be home 2 months. A pattern now which was very strange for Pain, Broody and Savannah. Broody didn't have many friends around. He didn't have any traumatic experience. Also, neither was he allergic or any medical problem. But this was getting overboard. Payne did not know what to do. Oh, in fact, he started using more violent video games than any, and Broody was slipping into a completely distant mode. Payne started crying, sharing her problems, wanting to talk to Broody, but nothing seemed to work. Now, this was a strange scenario where Payne, as a mother would be, did something amazing. This is one of the crux of our session today. How do you talk to boys? So now she waited. It's difficult to wait when you want answers, but Broody had to talk, and Payne knew that the best way to talk was not to ask him to talk. This is a general rule. When your children come home crying and the first thing we ask, what happened or who hit you, the first reaction for a child would be to hide things from you. A better way would be to just show your empathy, be caring, and the child will overwhelm you with the information and the data that you are seeking in the first place. Now, with the husband not there, Payne was all alone. And what she would do is she would go to Broody's bedroom every night and just sit there and pretend that she's not interested. She would generally tell her about her day to Broody. She will tell her what she did at the grocery store. She will tell her who she spoke to. She will tell her if she had problems, where the water supply was not there, or the electricity person came for the bills, or her father was calling, and Broody was just listen. Pretend sometime to be asleep, but would not do anything. After months of sitting on the edge of his bed, one night Broody seemed to be asleep. Payne, the mother, knew that she was aware that he was just faking it, and he just didn't want to go. She leaned over Broody and just kissed him goodbye, and it was at that time Broody started sobbing. For the longest time Payne has ever seen, she just held him tight and let him cry. During that night, he unloaded everything he had gone through. He was terrified, humiliated, and Broody felt now she was not holding a 12-year-old boy, but rather a 3-year-old son. And Broody started understanding what Payne had gone through. It was a session one evening when Broody was coming home. One of the person, rather someone they were very friendly with, a next door neighbor, an elderly gentleman, had taken Broody to his house, and then he did something which was absolutely unnatural. Broody had to perform unnatural act on this man. Broody was touched in his private part, and Broody did not know how to react. It went on for few weeks, and then Broody withdrew. He stopped going out, not making friends, not doing, and all the pattern that we told you was a decision that Broody took just to avoid the humiliation of sharing this abuse with someone else. Think about it. Making a decision to have a child is momentous, but it is to decide forever to have your heart go walking around outside your body. In today's difficult time, believe me, it is so very important. We are letting a child out of this cruel world. Cases of abuse on a high, molestations on a rise, and unless we let our children talk, we will not be able to understand their point of view, their perspective. Payne, the mother, did something amazing. She was patient, and she knew that boys won't talk unless they know we are ready to listen as mothers and fathers. So I'm going to end this session with 3 very, very distinct mistakes that we as parents make when our children are going through a traumatic experience and we don't know how to let them open up. Believe me, as a parent, there is no better counselor for a child than you yourself. There is no need of a therapist. When I say that, I don't mean any disrespect. What I mean is you are the best therapist for a child, and the best of the therapists acknowledge that. I just met one yesterday at a parenting session for learning disabled children, and she said something that we are there. But remember, a therapist spends half an hour, 30 minutes with a child, whereas rest of 23 hours and 30 minutes is what you as a parent spend with your child. So rule number 1, or one of the biggest mistakes we make, is we become impatient. Think of a father talking to a son or daughter, and he's watching his clock, he's reading newspaper, he's following the football game or the cricket league on television, and that is not your child's time, it's father's time. Don't demand his attention. The only way to be an extraordinary parent is wait for him to share his stories to you. Mistake number 2 that we do is we interrupt when we mean to teach. It's a no interruption. In the experience as a psychologist, daughters handle interruptions better than sons do. Because daughters are communicators, they have a lot of words. So even we interrupt them, they would still go on. But with sons, they would just stop. They will feel so hurt as if that no one's valuing them, and they'll stop talking. Usually, as parents, as coaches, as teachers, we interrupt because we have something very important to say. Something we have to say is a lesson. Can you please hold on to your lesson? And if you are, like most of us, are impatient in the first place, write down what you want to share so that you don't forget, but don't interrupt. One of the rare rules of counseling which is absolutely unfollowed is this rule of being interrupted every time by someone who means to coach you. So often boys, I again repeat, when we are teaching them, they just shut down. So how many times you ask your son a question and expecting a response, whereas he stopped giving you an answer? So rule number 2 is don't interrupt. And rule number 3, it's not about you, it's about them. It's about them, your children. So please put the cell phone down. So one mistake that I repeat again is we can't put the cell phone down. Maybe it's not your primary distraction. Your computer is, your work is, your other kids is, you're exercising, you're knitting, anything that could be a private list of your obsession is too much space in your mind and you're not listening to them. If you're not quite sure, ask your children, but please give him your 100% attention. If your phone's ringing, turn it off. If you have a meeting, cancel it. If you're doing some work, please don't multitask as you're coaching and counseling your children. That is one thing they'll hate. So I repeat, 3 mistakes that we do is we become impatient, we interrupt when we mean to teach, and we can't put our cell phones or anything that is WhatsApp or notification down when we talk to our children. I end with a sagely advice, something that is very important in today's time of abuse and kind of crimes that are happening with children. Children do not like to talk to certain people. Who are those people? Kids want someone who is in shock. So if your child comes and tells you something absolutely shocking, pretend that it's okay. If you show the shock value, they will get impacted and it might hurt them and put them in their shell. Number 2, children do not like someone who ignore them. So they want someone who do not ignore them. So you are not watching a TV and talking to them. You give them your eye contact, listen to them. And finally, children don't want someone who feels sorry about them. So kids want someone who won't feel sorry, which is where they got hurt, feel sorry for them. Give them the power, give them the side, give them all right. You value their courage, you value their fighting back. So these are 3 sagely advice I can give you. I can go on and on this particular topic of child abuse, but I leave you with 2 very strong resources. If you are someone like me who's more of a movie person, then Spotlight is an amazing sensitive movie made on the child abuse in the churches and very, very beautifully done, where Boston Times breaks the story and they say break the story, break the silence, and I add break the taboo. And Bitter Chocolate is a leading child therapist, Pinky Virani's a very nice 3-part package book on sexual child abuse in India. Today, with the laws of POSCO, the prevention of sexual abuse in children is stringent, and I see that we need to be aware to make our children safe from the periphery, from the parasites that are lurking in the society. With that, thank you very much. I hope our children are safe, sound, and absolutely parenting is a priority. Hope to see you again with the feedbacks and your sessions on Sky Education TV. Till then, goodbye and have a great parenting time. Bye-bye.